A small vial. Poison. Hidden in a ring he's worn for decades. Not for an enemy, for himself. Hannibal Barca, the greatest military mind in human history. The man who made Rome tremble for 17 years. The general who killed more Roman soldiers than any enemy before or since is hiding in a villa on the coast of Turkey. He's 64 years old, alone, surrounded by Roman soldiers who finally tracked him down after 4 decades of hunting. This isn't mythology. This isn't exaggeration. This is the man who crossed the Alps with elephants, who won battle after battle after battle against the greatest military power on earth, who came within miles of burning Rome to the ground. And now he's going to die in a foreign land, poisoned by his own hand, because even after 40 years, Rome was still afraid of him. But here's the part that will break your mind. Hannibal could have destroyed Rome. He had the chance. After his greatest victory, when 50,000 Roman soldiers lay dead in a single afternoon, when the gates of Rome were undefended, when the entire republic was begging for mercy, he stopped. He didn't march on Rome. And that single decision, that one moment of hesitation, would haunt him for the rest of his life. Because Rome never forgot. Rome never forgave. And Rome spent the next 4 decades hunting him across the Mediterranean like an animal. This is the story of the man who almost erased Rome from history. And it starts with an oath sworn by a 9-year-old boy. 241 BC. Carthage has just lost the First Punic War. Carthage isn't some minor city-state. It's an empire, the dominant power in the western Mediterranean. Their ships control trade routes from Spain to Sicily. Their wealth rivals Rome's. Their army is feared across Africa and Iberia. But Rome beat them. Barely. After 23 years of brutal warfare, Carthage surrendered. They paid crushing reparations. They gave up Sicily. They watched as Rome took everything they'd built. Hannibal Barca, Carthage's greatest general, never accepted the defeat. The hatred consumed him. One day, Hamilcar takes his 9-year-old son to the temple. He makes the boy place his hand on the altar, on the sacred flame. Swear, Hamilcar says. Swear that you will never be a friend to Rome. The boy swears. His name is Hannibal. For the next decade, Hannibal grows up in military camps. Spain becomes his classroom. He learns tactics from his father, strategy from his brother-in-law Hasdrubal. He fights alongside Numidian cavalry, Spanish infantry, Celtic warriors. He becomes a soldier at 18, a commander at 25. When Hasdrubal is assassinated, the army chooses Hannibal by acclamation, unanimously. He's 26 years old. He has 50,000 men. And he's about to do something no one thinks is possible. He's going to invade Italy, not by sea, where Rome's navy dominates. Not through Sicily, where Rome expects an attack. He's going to march his army over the Alps. The Romans hear the rumors. They laugh. They're wrong to laugh. 218 BC, late autumn, the wrong time to cross mountains. Hannibal's army is massive. 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants, psychological weapons designed to terrify enemies who've never seen anything like them. By the time they reach the foothills of the Alps, Hannibal has already lost thousands. But the Alps are waiting. Here's what nobody tells you about the crossing. It wasn't just difficult. It was apocalyptic. The passes are narrow, ice-covered. A path wide enough for 2 men with a sheer drop into nothing on one side. The army stretches for miles. They can't see the front. They can't see the rear. They can only see the man ahead of them and the abyss below. The elephants go first. Their massive feet crack through ice, finding purchase where horses can't. But the cold is killing them. Elephants are African animals. They're not built for snow, for freezing wind. One by one, they start to die. Mountain tribes attack. They roll boulders down from above, stones the size of men crashing into columns of soldiers, sending dozens tumbling into the void. The screaming echoes off the peaks. The survivors can't fight back. They can only keep moving, stepping over the bodies of their comrades. The path disappears. Avalanches have buried it under tons of snow and rock. Hannibal orders his men to build a new one. They heat boulders with fire, then crack them with vinegar. They carve a road out of the mountain itself. It takes days. Men freeze to death standing up. They sit down to rest and never rise again. Horses slip and drag their riders down with them. 15 days. That's how long the crossing takes. When Hannibal finally descends into Italy, he's lost almost half his men. 20,000 soldiers dead in the mountains. Most of his elephants gone. His army is exhausted, starving, frostbitten. Rome has 700,000 military-age men. Hannibal has 26,000 survivors. He should have turned back. He should have died in those mountains. Instead, he's about to win 3 of the most devastating victories in military history. The Trebia, December 218 BC. The Romans send an army to stop him. 40,000 men under consul Sempronius. Sempronius is eager, aggressive. He wants glory. Hannibal gives it to him. He sends his Numidian cavalry to harass the Roman camp at dawn. They throw javelins, retreat, lure Sempronius forward. The consul takes the bait. He orders his entire army to pursue. They haven't eaten breakfast. They wade through the freezing Trebia River in December. By the time they form battle lines, they're cold, hungry, exhausted. Hannibal is waiting on the other side. His men are fed, rested. The battle is a slaughter. Hannibal's brother, Mago, has hidden 2,000 men in a ravine. When the Romans commit fully, Mago emerges behind them. The encirclement is perfect. 20,000 Romans die. The survivors flee through the same freezing river, now running red. Rome is stunned, but they have more legions. They send another army. Lake Trasimene, June 217 BC. Consul Flaminius marches his legions through a narrow pass between the hills and the lake, chasing Hannibal's army. He doesn't see the ambush. Hannibal has hidden 30,000 men in the hills. Fog blankets the valley. The Romans march blind into a kill zone 3 miles long. When the attack comes, it comes from everywhere. From the hills, from behind, from the sides. There's no battle. There's only chaos. The Romans can't form lines. They can't see their officers. They can't see their enemy until a sword is in their face. Many drown trying to escape into the lake, their armor dragging them under. 15,000 dead in 3 hours, including Flaminius himself. Rome panics. They appoint a dictator, Fabius, who refuses to fight. He shadows Hannibal, but never offers battle. The Romans call him the Delayer. Fabius knows the truth. He's the only Roman who understands that fighting Hannibal in open battle is suicide. But Rome doesn't listen. They raise the largest army in their history, 80,000 men, 8 legions. They marched south to end this once and for all. Cannae, August 2nd, 216 BC. This is it, the masterpiece. The battle that military academies still study 2,200 years later. Hannibal has 50,000 men. Rome has 80,000. The Romans put their least experienced consul in command. He lines up the legions, deep and tight, overwhelming force. They'll simply push through the Carthaginian center and crush them. Hannibal knows exactly what he will do. He's counting on it. He places his weakest troops in the center, Gauls and Spaniards. He tells them their job isn't to win. Their job is to lose, slowly, to bend, but not break, to draw the Romans deeper and deeper into the formation. On the wings, he places his best, African veterans, Numidian cavalry. The battle begins. The Roman center pushes forward. Hannibal's center bends backward, exactly as planned. The Romans pour into the gap, certain they're winning. They're not winning. They're dying. Hannibal's cavalry destroys the Roman horsemen on both flanks. Then they wheel around behind the Roman infantry. The African veterans pivot inward. Suddenly, 80,000 Romans are surrounded on all sides. The killing takes hours. The Romans are so tightly packed they can't raise their swords. They're pressed together, suffocating, trampled by their own men. Hannibal's soldiers work through them methodically, stabbing, hacking. The dust mixes with blood into a red mist that hangs over the field. 50,000 Romans die in one afternoon. That's more than America lost in the entire Vietnam War, in a single battle, with swords, including 80 senators, including Consul Aemilius Paulus, including the flower of Roman aristocracy. The survivors flee. The road to Rome is open. Hannibal's cavalry commander, Hannibal, rides up to him after the battle. The horses are exhausted. The men are soaked in blood. But Hannibal's eyes are blazing. "Give me the cavalry," he says. "In 5 days, we'll dine on the capital." Hannibal looks at the road north, looks at his exhausted army, looks at the bodies carpeting the field. He says no. Hannibal stares at him, then delivers the most famous rebuke in military history. "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal, but you don't know how to use one." Why didn't he march on Rome? Historians have debated this for 2,000 years. Some say his army was too small to siege a city. Some say he was waiting for Italian allies to defect. But here's what we know for certain. Hannibal never got another chance. Rome didn't surrender. They didn't negotiate. They did something no other ancient civilization would have done after losing 50,000 men in an afternoon. They raised more legions. They armed slaves. They armed children. They melted temple ornaments into weapons. And they made a vow. No peace with Hannibal. No negotiation. No surrender. They would fight until Carthage was ash, or Rome was erased from the earth. Hannibal stayed in Italy for 13 more years. 13 years. Undefeated. Winning battles. Burning towns. Begging Carthage for reinforcements. The reinforcements never came. Carthage's politicians were jealous, afraid. They saw Hannibal's success and wondered what he'd do with that army if he came home. Better to let him rot in Italy. Better to keep the dangerous man far away. His brother Hasdrubal finally marched from Spain with another army, crossed the same Alps, came to rescue Hannibal, to combine forces, to finally crush Rome. He never made it. The Romans intercepted him at the Metaurus River. Hasdrubal died in the battle. The Romans cut off his head, marched south, and threw it into Hannibal's camp. Hannibal saw his brother's face, rotting, covered in blood, rolling to a stop at his feet. He knew then. He said it himself. I see the fate of Carthage. Rome finally found a general who could match Hannibal. Publius Cornelius Scipio, a young man who'd survived Cannae, who'd studied Hannibal's tactics obsessively. Scipio didn't try to beat Hannibal in Italy. He took the war to Africa, invaded Carthage's homeland, burned their crops, threatened their walls. Carthage panicked. They recalled Hannibal. After 17 years in Italy, undefeated, he was ordered home to defend a city that had abandoned him. He came. He had no choice. Zama, 202 BC. The two greatest generals of the ancient world, face to face. Hannibal with his veterans, Scipio with his legions. For the first time in his career, Hannibal was outgeneraled. Scipio turned Hannibal's own tactics against him, used Numidian cavalry, the same cavalry that had won Cannae, against their former master. When the dust settled, Hannibal's army was destroyed. He survived, fled the field, returned to Carthage, and told them the truth. The war was lost. They made peace. Rome stripped Carthage of its navy, imposed crushing tribute, took everything. Hannibal stayed in Carthage. He tried to reform the government, fought corruption, became a politician. Rome couldn't allow it. They demanded his surrender. Hannibal ran. For the next 20 years, Hannibal wandered the Mediterranean, advising Rome's enemies, helping anyone who would fight the Republic. He fled to Syria, helped King Antiochus wage war against Rome. They lost. Hannibal ran again. He fled to Crete, then to Armenia, then to Bithynia, a small kingdom on the coast of modern Turkey. The king of Bithynia gave him refuge. Hannibal was 64 now, old, tired, still brilliant. But Rome never stopped hunting. They sent envoys to the king. Give us Hannibal, or we'll destroy you. The king was weak. He agreed. Roman soldiers surrounded Hannibal's villa, every exit blocked, every escape route closed. Hannibal walks through his house. He checks every door, every window. Romans everywhere. Men who've traveled across the Mediterranean just to capture one 64-year-old exile. He could fight, take a few of them with him. But that's not how he wants to end. He has a ring. He's worn it for decades. Inside is a vial of poison. He's always known this day would come. He returns to his room, sits down, looks out the window at the soldiers who've come to drag him back to Rome in chains. He speaks his final words. I give it. Roman historians recorded them. Let us relieve the Romans from the anxiety they have so long experienced, since they think it tries their patience too much to wait for an old man's death. Then he drinks. The poison burns through him. He convulses, falls. Marcus Licinius Crassus drowned in gold. Valerian became a chair. But Hannibal? Hannibal chose. He denied Rome the satisfaction of his capture, denied them the triumph, denied them the parade through the streets, the humiliation, the execution in the forum. Rome had hunted him for 40 years, sent armies, sent assassins, sent diplomats, and in the end, they got nothing but a corpse. Rome won. Carthage was eventually destroyed completely. Scipio's adopted grandson burned it to the ground in 146 BC. They salted the earth so nothing would grow, sold the survivors into slavery, erased it from the map. But they never forgot Hannibal. For generations, Roman mothers would scare their children with his name. Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal is at the gates, the boogeyman of an empire. Senators invoked him whenever they wanted to justify military spending. Remember what happened when we were weak. Remember Cannae. They studied his battles, copied his tactics. The double envelopment at Cannae became the standard against which all military victories were measured. 2,200 years later, generals still study him. Military academies from West Point to Sandhurst teach Cannae as the perfect battle. The man who lost the war became immortal. Here's the brutal irony of Hannibal's life. He kept his oath. From age 9 until age 64, he never stopped fighting Rome. He crossed impossible mountains, won impossible victories, killed more Romans than any enemy in their history. And it wasn't enough. Not because he wasn't good enough. He was the greatest. Everyone knew it. Even the Romans admitted it. He failed because Carthage failed him. Because the politicians back home were more afraid of Hannibal than they were of Rome. Because the reinforcements never came. Because his brother's head rolled into his camp instead of his brother's army. He won every battle and lost the war. Spartacus died free, his body never found. Crassus died choking on gold, his greed made literal. Valerian died broken, his skin stretched over a Persian throne. But Hannibal died choosing. He looked at Rome, the enemy he'd fought for 55 years, and said, "You don't get to have me." That's not defeat. That's defiance. The poison wasn't surrender. It was the final victory of a man who refused to give his enemies what they wanted most. Rome spent 4 decades hunting Hannibal Barca. They found a body, but they never caught the legend. And 2,200 years later, we remember his name more than we remember theirs. A small vial, poison, hidden in a ring, not for an enemy, for himself. The last weapon of a man who never stopped fighting.